Hello and welcome to Finding Your Pink, the podcast dedicated to helping women reclaim their vibrant colour at every stage of their career and life. I'm your host, Emma Ledden. My guest today is someone who you're actually used to hearing on the other side of the microphone as the founder and host of not one, not two, not three, but four incredible podcasts to date. She is also someone who is a huge advocate for women in Ireland, supporting women business owners with her own business, Brand Story, and as a trusted voice in media, talking about issues affecting working women, such as the childcare crisis, among many, many others. On top of all of that, she is mum to Penny and Juliet, or Juju. I'm so thrilled to welcome Sinead O'Moore to Finding Your Pink today. Hi, Sinead.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, could you write my CV? Because you make it sound so much more impressive than the chaotic, it doesn't feel like that in real life. But when you put it all together like that, you're like, who's she?
Yeah, it's you. It's all true, Sinead. So you have been 17, 18 years in the world of branding,
Yeah.
advertising, podcasting.
Yeah.
So today, what does your week look like? Your podcasting, your business, what does it look like today?
Meeting the needs of my kids while also earning an income, in summary. So the structure of my week, like most mothers, is, already there's been an email about hand, foot and mouth. There's been an email about a tummy bug in the school. There is several activities that need to be, I had a moment this morning where I had complete heart failure because I thought it was a Wednesday, and on a Wednesday the school takes her for swimming, so you have to send her with her swimming kit to school, and I almost, had heart failure. So that's the reality of my week. I'm very much the default parent, and I also have my own goals, and I also have the reality of a mortgage to pay for. So I'm like, how can I do this and be the type of, mother that I wanted to be? So it was like, I need to take everything that I've learned in my career over those 17 years, and I need to package it in a way that I can still do it at home in and around the needs of everybody else. This season focusing on the 40 stretch. So I recorded yesterday. It'll be out tomorrow. Childhood Cancer Ireland are a client of mine. I'll be back recording for them, and a couple of other projects as well. So I structure it that some things are weekly, some things are every 2 weeks, and then my strategy projects are kind of longer term with clients. And I worked last night until 10 o'clock, but I'll be at the school gate at 2 o'clock today, and that's just how it works.
When did you, that is a very significant move to make, because you were in the corporate world. You were all in. You were leaning in.
I was leaning in, and I was shattering ceilings all over the gaff.
And then you decided no.
Yeah, for me, it started 10 years ago, the saying no. So I was pursuing a career in advertising and adored it. Was completely I romanticized the industry for for the creativity that it brought, for the excitement it brought. It was a time in Ireland where I got to spend time with these amazing minds and these amazing creators and thinkers and writers, and it was all TV production, and it was just stunning, and you'd be so proud to see it. You'd sit down at Christmas and the ad had come on, and then that lost its gloss because firstly there was such an obvious move away from us consuming TV in that way, but then it was like I watched a lot of people around me lose their pink. I watched a lot of people around me leave, and for lots of different reasons, and somewhere along the way I also saw that there was so few women left. It's like, where are all the women gone? And where are all the women that are 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years ahead of me? And how can I learn from them as to how they do it? So I was 30, 31. We just bought our house. I very much knew that the next few years I would want to start a family. And it was like, where are all the mas that I can be like, how do we do this? Because we're all here until 11 o'clock at night. And I do believe it has changed. I have very good friends in the industry still, and definitely there was reform because they identified that all the women were going. So I had some soul searching to do. And the other thing about the industry is you always feel like you couldn't go anywhere else. It's so kind of institutionalized. You really do feel like, this is what we do. Where would I go? And weirdly and randomly, I had an opportunity that came up to join EU Mum, which I rebranded to Every Mum, which was this parenting website. I wasn't yet a parent. It was digital content. Digital content was kind of on the rise as opposed to TV advertising was on decline. I was like, okay, well, I can justify that in terms of a professional move. But really it was identifying, I still had all this career ambition and growth, but my ladder was up against the wrong wall.
I love that.
I wanted to climb, but I was like, I don't want to get there. I don't want that roof. And I always think now when I talk to people, the higher you climb, the scarier it is to move. So I just went, you know what, if not now, when? And I just paused. I took like a 10 grand pay cut, which was insane when I think of it. But I got my life back, if that makes sense. And it was the best decision I ever made. So
wow.
That was 10 years ago, and that has stayed with me. And I had to make a couple of decisions like that. So the most recent one, I suppose, was after the birth of my second baby. In lockdown, no childcare, there was so much uncertainty and career uncertainty. There was definitely a lot of career uncertainty at the time. Nobody knew the status of, who'd be going back to jobs and all this kind of stuff. So again, it was like, what do you need right now? What is the right course of action right now? And how can you back yourself right now? And I decided to leave full time and set up my own business. So the brand Story was born, and thankfully it has consistently brought me work and brought me clients.
Amazing. So you've been incredibly brave. They are very brave steps to take to move from what sounded like a very secure, very set career path. I absolutely love what you said there. I wanted to climb the ladder, but the ladder was in the wrong place. That's very powerful, Sinead. As you know, this podcast, Finding Your Pink, is about in those moments of transformation or change. And there's loads of them. It could be you're in a career and your manager or the company is not working for you anymore. It could be you've stepped into a new career and you just don't know what that new identity is. It could be that you have a baby and another baby in lockdown and you're like, oh my God, what is going on with life? There's so many reasons that we can need to grow and transform and find a new identity for ourselves, because we can lose that confidence and colour. And I suppose in all of that, or maybe there's a different scenario, Sinead, is there a point where you have lost that confidence and that colour in yourself?
Weekly. So this isn't, I decided to jump one day and I just grew my wings and soared and it's been plain sailing ever since. This is a weekly commitment to, this is who I have to be. This is what we have to do. This is how we have to believe that this project will land. This income will come. This client will eventually pay that invoice. Our life has shrunk back to just what we need to get through. Like, my goal isn't that I want to take over the universe and have, a multi-million euro income business. Breaking even is winning, but breaking even on my terms, that I got to do what I needed to do for my kids at the ages that they were at. I got to live by my own values. I got to do the work that ignited me, and I didn't have to ring in sick every time the creche called and feel that guilt. I don't know why that was so corrosive for me. I think it was probably the good girl complex that maybe we were brought up with, that somehow I was doing something wrong by also being a mother. And I just, being self-employed, just allowed me to shake that off. Now, when I say there are months where I am terrified, I'm like, how am I going to find a way to contribute to our home account enough for that to be paid? That exists all the time. That never goes. My pink is, oh my God, it's like a tapestry of pink at this stage. And you see those memes where they have like a particular character like in a grid and they're like, which one of this are you, like, who are you today? That's me, but with my pink. And even 2 hours ago, my pink was very lackluster. There was moments of like, oh shit, that ball was dropped, or that person I need to invest some worry into, or, why do I not feel like I can breathe with the jobs that just have to get done? And then there will be moments where you're like, I am so proud. Like, I got this email yesterday from a listener of the podcast, and it was an essay. It was an essay of an email of how it influenced and was of such value to where she was at. And so much of what she said, I was like, oh my God, I've been you. I have felt that. She's just returned to work after her first baby and she's just feeling so unsupported and she's feeling so confused and lost and all these things. And I just kind of went, wow, that couldn't and wouldn't have happened had I not, as you said, maybe been that brave. When people said to me, God, you're so brave, when I told them, like, I'm not going back from mat leave, I'm going to try and figure things out myself. Everyone's like, wow, you're so brave. I didn't feel brave.
What did you feel then? If you didn't feel brave,
in control. And I would have needed more bravery to actually go back to work and hand back control. That would have felt scarier for me because of just the way my brain works. I don't know, but I felt no comfort and no confidence in feeling like I was handing the keys of the next few years of my career and what I could do back. And it had nothing to do with the people or the organization. They were all fabulous, but I just meant in the time that Ireland was, in the time that the world was, was at the ages my kids were, I needed to put my 2 feet on my ground and be like, okay, I get to build a castle actually for this season. And it might, like, it could have just been a year. And I never quit and resigned and built the business to be like, as I said, this is going to take over the world. It was like, will this pay me for the next 6 months what I need to survive? And also be at home with my child who has no creche place. Because there is no creche places. Like, it was as simple as that. And I very much operate, I know one of the things we're going to talk about later is like favorite quotes. Like, I'm a big believer in just do what you need today. What do you need today? You don't have to build. You know, we were always asked, oh, what's your 10-year plan? Like, who can operate in that? Have we seen what the world has done in the last 5 years? So no more 10-year plans. What do we need today for where we're at? And kind of just go from there.
I think that's really interesting because I worked for myself as a consultant before I had children, and my time was endless.
Yeah.
Weekends, evenings, it was just endless time. And one thing I've definitely found since having children is that just doesn't exist. As you say, 2 o'clock today, you are going to be standing at a school gate, collecting penny, going to do whatever activity you do on Tuesdays, you know, with your 4-year-old as well. And they're going to need your attention till bedtime at 9 o'clock tonight, or however long bedtime lasts in your house. So you have whatever hours you have this morning. That's all you have. And you don't have endless hours. So that's so true. I've really come to realize that expectation of let's do everything, or as you say, let's take over the world. I don't have time to take over the world.
Don't have time, no desire, don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, even people have said to me, oh, would you not take on somebody at this stage like that could help out with, you know, some, and I'm like, then I'd have to worry about them. So I'm in I can only control what I can control, and this is what we're going to do with the time I have available. And I'm very good to myself in that sense, in that I don't set expectations beyond that. You know, it's like, can I still earn what I need in the time that I have available to also take care of life? But going forward, we're 3 years in now, and it was like, oh, I forgot the bit where I had some downtime.
Okay.
So that's the lesson.
So that was where I was going to go next, because I really believe there's going to be a lot of women listening who are thinking about making that transition. I built a program about women returning to work after mat leave, and every single woman, this is no joke, every single woman I met said they wanted a 3-day week or flexible working, wanted to make their kids breakfast and drop them to school, wanted to pick them up from school, wanted to be at the activities. That's the number one thing. And these were smart, ambitious, amazing, successful women, but they wanted to be home at least more than the 5-day week and commute allowed for. So making that move into kind of, okay, I'll give up corporate and I'll work for myself to be at the school gate. You know, the reality of that, Sinead, the reality of that in terms of, are you making the school gate? Are you making any money? And then where are you in the middle of all that? And feel free to answer as much of that as you want, but there's a lot.
You remind me of a moment I'll never forget, and I still kind of get a little emotional about it, but I've written a piece on Substack about it as well. So it was kind of it could have been around this time last year. It was still winter for sure, but it wasn't October, November, December that has just gone by. So it was probably around this time last year. And my then 3-year-old was out of creche with cold, and she was just, you know, when they get really snotty, you know, and you can't keep their face clean and they just look so miserable. But she wasn't necessarily too unwell to leave the house, you know, so we set off down to one of the local cafes, and she was on her scooter, and we just get some fresh air and we get some banana bread or whatever. So off we went. And she'd been in the bed with me for 3 or 4 nights at this stage. You know, I was probably about to be sick as well. Like, it was, we were all unwell. I looked horrific. I couldn't remember the last time I had washed. I was in my leggings and my dirty boots that go to the park in, you know, that are just full of muck, and that's okay because I just leave them in the porch and I put them back on again. And the big puffer jacket, no makeup, just not, you know, I was just in full survival. My kid is sick. We're doing it all with no sleep mode. And we know it. We've all been there. And I was standing waiting to order, and I noticed kind of the eyes of a woman, a couple of people down the queue. And she was pristine. And she was maybe a couple of years older than me. And she had her hair perfectly done. You know the way you see air hostesses and you're just kind of like, how do they keep it so perfect? Anyway, her hair was perfectly done. And she was in this beautiful, perfect length camel coat and, you know, a leather laptop bag and beautiful heels. And she was so elegant. And she was clearly on her way to work and just looked like the goal. But she was looking at my little girl with such kind of admiring eyes. And I don't know her story, you know, so I don't know why, but she was kind of looking at her, you know, with a lovely little glazed smile. And a little later we were sitting on benches outside the cafe, you know, because I just, again, you know, the way you feel like, oh, I'll disturb someone's breakfast with my 3-year-old. So we'll sit outside in the damp instead. So we were outside on these picnic benches. And anyway, she emerged out with her coffee and her bag in hand, and she sat into her beautifully clean car, which had this lovely leather interior, and she sailed so serenely off to her day. And I was sitting there and there was just crumbs and snot and, you know, little plastic toys in my pocket. And part of me wanted to just grab onto the back of her Jeep and be like, take me with you. Like, I thought I was going to be you. For a moment in my 20s, I was you, but I thought I was going to be you. And perhaps she drove off thinking, I wish I was sat at that picnic bench with that little girl. So yeah, we're presented these moments all the time, but I did feel a loss, like a little grief as to like that I'm not her. And I'm not her because of the choices that I decided to make. Like, they are choices I own. I'm not victimizing myself in any of this. These are my choices and I stand by them and I've no regrets. But also it's like, oh my God, to be her. And perhaps her husband may have been the one that morning dropping them to crash, and she is me on different days of the week, you know. Yeah. So there could have been all of these scenarios, but she just looked like she had her shit together. And in that moment, I couldn't have felt less like I had my shit together. A friend actually asked me the other day, because we were catching up over stuff and I haven't actually spoken to her in a long time, and she was asking about work and everything, and I said, you know, like, the one thing I can say is my mum guilt is very low.
Wow.
You know, mum guilt is very, very low. But all of the other things, you know, like, so when I saw her there and she just looked like she had her shit together, and I'm like, oh God, I'm just not who I thought 40-year-old me would be. And that's partly why I love, thank God for the pandemic, I love that I can do everything from inside my 4 walls, because 9 times out of 10, I'm her all day long. Like, I go from the school gate to walking the dog to tap, tap, tap on the laptop to back, you know, I don't, other than I'm showing up today with your beautiful self, I'd still have the hair scraped above my head and be in my fleece and my leggings. And that's kind of, again, because you just, what do I have to do today? Well, I've X amount of jobs and that just doesn't fit in, and that's okay. But I've noticed in myself, if that goes on for too many days or weeks in a row, it does actually impact my esteem and my happiness and my crankiness. I'm not terribly aesthetic. I'm not terribly into, you know, I'm not going to do 7 steps of contouring, right? I don't believe that, like, I think you can find different degrees of value for yourself, not just based on your exterior. But I also know on the days that I have actually had, you know, a shower and blow dried my hair and managed to put some makeup on and look less tired and feel good about myself, I generally am a nicer human. So there's a lesson in this. And I feel more accomplished than if I'm sitting in my fleece and my hoodie and my leggings and I'm in my very cold home office at the moment, because it's kind of like a shed piece off our house. So if I'm in there shivering away and I get a really good result out of something, it still actually doesn't feel the same, because I'm like, oh my God, look at the state of me though.
And it's so interesting, because I think all of the days are valuable. Like, you can have your fleece and hair scraped back days, and you can have your I'm recording a podcast days, and all those, like, something I'm really taking from you today is that it is all those days, they add up to something very significant. Because you're right, you know, even today I'm the same as you, you know, I do this, I go down, I get lunch and I go get the kids, you know, and you're like, did I achieve anything today? Like, oh my God, like, what am I?
But you are, this is step one of you.
Exactly.
Like, but starting something amazing.
And that is the point, is that I don't think you realize, just to someone like me, who this is my, as I said to you, this is my very first podcast recording. exciting.
Honoured.
And I am meeting with the podcast queen because to me, that's what you are. And it was all your days of all the different ways that you are and all the different podcasts that you've done. And we were only discussing before we came on, the different, from Riverside to Zoom to all the different ways to do it, and you've had the days of doing all that to now having, an award-winning, incredibly successful podcast. I know you didn't do that in one day, but you did that in 3 years.
And I would never have had the confidence to do it myself. This is the thing. So, and I think that is an important part of the story. You have done it yourself from day one. You are starting it yourself from day one. I started a podcast for my employer when I worked at Every Mum because that was what I should have done for my job. I was head of content and brand. I was in charge of making sure that we were bringing in more audience, getting our word out there, promoting the brand, creating different revenue opportunities for more sponsors to come on board. That was my job. So I knew what we had to do for the brand that I was taking care of at the time. And that is what made me start the podcast, not me sitting at home saying, I'm going to be brave enough to start my own pod. So I could do that for them. And then I realized, oh my God, I love this. I love this. So when I did stop working with them for all of the reasons that I just said, the second baby, the COVID, the situation, I had to keep doing it. So that was the point though that I felt terrified. I felt really terrified.
With stretch marks.
Yeah. Would people come with me? I felt so attached to what I had done with Every Mum. I felt really knitted into it because at this point it was no longer a brand that I was just kind of caring for. The podcast, all of those conversations I had those connections with these women. I had cried with these women. I had laughed with these women. I had now befriended all of these women. And I felt like I was leaving the room and I was closing the door to that, and that it was going to be repackaged and just kind of picked up somewhere else. But it was like I had a really deep relationship with it at this point. And I was really scared that I wouldn't be able to recreate that, or that people wouldn't come with me, or that it was so widely listened to because Every Mum, were able to email it to all of their members, of which there's like 200,000 or something at the time, and I would be without the media platform. It would be just me. And I think, sometimes you're made to feel that way too. So I had to dig deep to be like, okay, I'm going to do it. But it wasn't easy. I had to really channel some motivation to do it.
And when you look back on you then, you look back on that person that that version of you that needed to channel that, and you did it. When you look back now, what has been the growth there? Do you recognize that?
Hugely.
Yeah. Okay.
Often reflect on it because I almost didn't. I really almost didn't.
It was that scary. You were just like, I won't.
Yeah, I almost didn't. A few scenarios almost happened, but this was the least likely. So staying and continuing the podcast and clinging on was option one. Never doing it again and just never having the courage actually to set something up by myself was option two. And this was option three. It was the least likely. But something happened where I knew in my soul I would be so disappointed in myself. I'd be so disappointed in myself if I didn't give it a go. And I was very lucky because my co-host when we first launched, Caroline, she held my hand through that. She really did. I wouldn't have done it by myself, I don't think. And then as it happens, she has a very busy life as well. And this was an element too much for her at exactly the right time that I did feel, okay, I'm okay. And then it made sense for me to continue with it. So, but it very nearly didn't happen. I very, very nearly didn't have that courage.
Are you glad now you did?
Oh, you have no idea how much it has brought to my life and how much it being mine has changed my feeling of authority on it, if that makes sense. As I said, feeling like I was an employee in it versus, oh, this is mine to define and I can shape it how I want and I can make decisions. But it has brought so much friendship into my life at quite an isolating time. So you talk of losing your pink. So professionally things may have been kind of soaring, but personally I was certainly losing my pink. Life became really isolated for everybody, for all concerned. And I don't think I've shaken that off, I suppose. We look at kind of March 2020, I kind of feel like I came home that day and I never really left again. Been in my house for 5 years.
Meet your sister.
And thank God for what WhatsApp and voice notes and what have you. But if I didn't have these conversations, and I often say it on the pod as well, like I have connected with women who I would watch and really, feel, oh God, they're amazing. I'd love to have a conversation with them. If you don't drop the word podcast into the DM and you're simply saying, I'd love if could I get an hour with you next Tuesday, about 11 o'clock, like, who's this weirdo? No, of course I'm not gonna, no. If you say, yeah, but we're recording a podcast, people say yes. People say yes. And then all of a sudden it's like, how did I get to hang out with her this week? And I might only be virtually, but you do begin to kind of have a bit of a friendship going, and they support other things that you do and you support other things that they do, and all of a sudden it's kind of this little gang. That to me is the thing that I wouldn't be the woman I am today if I hadn't have started the pod. That is what it has brought to me. Wow. Because I am who I'm talking to. I am just as lost and lonely and confused and stretched as she is.
You've mentioned that a few times, the loneliness of working for yourself.
Yeah.
And I know when you say you haven't left your house, I know you're not joking. School gates, swimming, throw in a few play zones.
Yeah.
That is it, really.
That is it.
The odd, very maybe girly lunch if you're lucky. But, I believe you when you say you haven't left your cold office, in 5 years. And there is a loneliness. So you're rocking the mom stuff. There's not much mom guilt. You certainly seem to be rocking the work, although I know that's not always how it feels. But then you talk about yourself, and, connection is so important. It's everything. It's everything, connection. And yet you are kind of on your own, solopreneuring. And you've mentioned loneliness a few times just in your content. I know you joined the Image.
Yeah.
I know you did that for a year. I don't know what that was like. So maybe in trying to find your pink this year, is that something that you will look at, maybe, that there is a terrible loneliness to motherhood, I think, that nobody talks about.
Nobody talks about. And I think we've fixed a hole. We've plugged the gap in mat leave. And I think if you choose not to be lonely in maternity leave, it's possible for you to stay busy. Even if you don't make those connections, it's definitely possible to stay busy externally out of your house. You can go to your coffee mornings, you can go to your baby massage or your yogas or your swimming, with baby. There's things that have been invented for us in maternity leave, thank God. But then when work kicks back in, or if you are choosing to be a stay-at-home parent and your child is too old for those things, I think there can be a real gap. There's a real sense of isolation then. For me, it's kind of busyness. And I know that I hate that word. I hate busyness because, that whole, we can choose what we do with our day. Like you can try and structure it, but it simply is an erosion of my needs, because will seem less important to the other things I have to do. And they're not, and I mean, making money is up there. I am doing this career-wise out of necessity, not just ambition. Okay. So for me to say, can I take that morning and go to all of these different things that could be on? And I suppose I'm talking as well about a lot of women kind of that might do, or that kind of, I might be in that world of kind of media or promoting their own businesses or whatever. There are lots of networking opportunities, but sometimes I literally can't afford the time to do them, because it's like, well, no, because that's when I have to get the money making bit of my day done to then step back into mother mode. So, but I do need to make some more conscious decisions for sure. It's also because of friendships though. Like friendships, everybody is in this space. Everybody has 3 minutes to get back to that voice note, and their 3 minutes maybe 3 weeks later than your 3 minutes, and then you respond in another 3 weeks, and the love and the connection and the affection and the caring, like that's all still there. But I don't see people in the way that I did in my 20s. I didn't know how much of a therapy that was, and then it was all a bit of a blur and a haze for several years. And now I do feel, no more than you starting this pod today and your youngest starting primary school, and you beginning to feel, okay, it's time to like plume my feathers a little. I do feel that for sure this year, that it's like, oh God, I need physical interaction with other people more often. So yeah, I do need to, but I'm not entirely sure what those steps are. This came up most recently, Eve from Women's Health Dublin. One of the questions that I had for her, and her answer was, it was around like, what do you want for yourself this decade? And she's just turned 40, and her response will like always stay with me. And it was, she wants to love her life beyond beyond her children and not make her life about her children. And she has similar ages to us. And she's like, I've done intensely those years. And I want to make sure that when they get busy, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, when they get busy with friends, that I have not forgotten about the things that I need. And that's not like your skincare at night or that spa weekend. Consistent things within her career, within her hobbies, within her goals that are still for her and remain for her and are making her life something that she wakes up in the morning and is excited to live. And I'm like, oh God, yeah, I want that. I want that, please.
Yeah, me too. I was actually chatting to a mum on a play date recently, and this lovely mum who I see all the time, she's her son is one of my son's best friends, and she has recently taken up not just running, but marathon running. I was like, oh my God. And we were chatting about it, and I was like, why? Why have you taken up marathon running?
Let's begin with why. Yeah.
Why? Like, why are you getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
Please explain to me why. And she was saying to me, she's like, Emma, and again, it was very powerful. She said, Emma, a cup of tea or a coffee in a coffee shop just wasn't doing it anymore. And she said, taking a break or like that, having the magazine and the cup of coffee or the cup of tea, which I love. For me, it's going for a scone and a cup of tea. I just love it. And it's a bit of space. But she was saying it just wasn't enough anymore. At a certain stage when the kids were so small or when she really had no time, it was enough. But she's like, I have to do something for me that's mine and that gives me a sense of achievement. Exactly that, outside of everything else. And running a marathon, you can't sort of do it one week and not do the next week. You really have to commit. And she said that word to me. She's like, Emma, I wanted the commitment. I wanted to commit. I wanted something that I had to commit to and that I would see through. And again, it was really inspiring because I was like, wow, that's it. The cup of coffee, it gets to a stage where you want more than that, right?
There's a time, but I feel I've graduated from there, and I absolutely need something like that. And I think you're right. It is that commitment piece, and it is I'm showing up for me every week, and even every second day if it's marathon training, or even every day, but it's the selfishness thing that often because if we are to do that, something has to give, because we're not stealing from free time. Something has to give. And I do think we need to relinquish. For me, often it's I don't ask for that time to be given to me. I will have done the things and then be resentful that I've done the things instead of asking for help to do the things. Very toxic. That's my thing. I need to work on it.
I don't think you're alone, Sinead.
The help is there. The help is there. I do just need to obviously write a very clear list and communicate it several times. But the help is there.
And as you say, finding your pink for you is a daily, weekly, something you have to work on daily and weekly. Do you have any strategies or tips or advice, or I don't know what word you put in it yourself, but is there anything you do in your day, in your week, in your month to try and give yourself that colour, even within the very limited time that you have?
So definitely the podcast absolutely I get really colourless when I'm off season, for sure. I notice the difference. I have regular, every 6 to 8 weeks, myself and my friend Simone go to Howth and we drink wine. Our most recent endeavour was too much wine, so we need to look at that. We have the perfect system where we don't even have to do where do you want to go and what time will we know what dart we're getting, we know what restaurant we're going to, we know what we're ordering. No thinking is involved. We don't even text. It's like, I'll see you there, I will be there. And we drink some wine and we give out about life and we tell each other that we're great, and then we go off again. So that's really good. On a daily basis, I have to say this year, my dog has completely transformed my energy, I don't want to say sadness, because that makes it sound like I was terribly depressed, and that wasn't true. But just the melee of life, just the oh God, it's just the same stuff. Because he is so happy to see you and greets you so amazingly, and he's constant company. So again, with the loneliness, I think, of working from home, having him has been transformative actually for my mental health. And we have a lovely little walk routine now, so I'm out with him so much more, and I'm not on my own walking. That's the thing, I'm with him, and it just doesn't feel so isolating. And while I'm with him, I kind of have a little structure. So the morning, I always listen to a meditation track, which you're probably not supposed to do when you're out walking. You're probably supposed to do it when you're actually sitting still, but I listen to it and it kind of helps me feel like, okay, we're going to attack the day now. We're going of go forward with some hope. So I think that's something that I need to channel. There's a lot of hopelessness in the world, and I get really pulled into that. I think very deeply all the time about the state of where we are. Sometimes the meditation, it just kind of is like, okay, maybe there's hope on the horizon. Maybe there's hope on the horizon. Maybe this had to happen in order for us to realize this, and therefore change will happen. And instead of staying in fear and anger. And then some walks are about like calling a friend. So when you're out for that walk, you're calling the friend. And then some walks are like nature. So no earphones, no headphones, no listening to anything. Like I like to kind of take them into we've like a little woodland area near us. And that's when you hear like the crunch of the leaves and the birds singing, and you feel like a little bit of sunshine peeking through some trees. And you're like, God, this is amazing. This is so beautiful. All of this is still here for us. Life isn't just about emails and, the trudge. All of this is ours, actually. And sometimes you don't see that when you've got the headphones in.
I love that, Sinead. I'm going to finish with my 5 quick questions. You may have answered some of them, you may not have, but they're just meant to be quick. So, your favourite book or most recent book you're reading, whichever.
I mean, obviously there's Bluey's Baby Race, which Santa brought and is on loop in our house, but also it makes me cry because it's so beautiful. Alison Keating's is the one that's currently permanently on my nightstand. It's called It's All Too Much. Alison is a psychologist and a mother of 3 girls and knows the stretch. So it's called It's All Too Much. And sometimes when I think that it's just me and I'm losing my mind and I'm failing and why am I not able, even just seeing the cover allows me the permission to acknowledge, actually, it is all too much and it's not me. It's all too much. And then I kind of go, okay, we're good. We're fine. Do what you can. So that's the one at the moment for sure.
I love that. Your favourite quote?
My favourite quote, other than is your ladder on the right building, is probably if not now, when. If something keeps coming to you, if there's a voice inside, an intuitive voice that's always speaking to you and it's asking you to do something, I respond often with, well, if not now, when? And sometimes that can be, now that's not to do with like emptying the dishwasher, like quitting the job. Do you know what I mean? Like doing the thing. You just got to jump. Sometimes you just got to jump and it's like, well, if not now, when? And then sometimes I follow it up with if not when, and if not you, who? So the if not you, who comes in. Sometimes I get work opportunities through into the brand story and I have a moment of intimidation where I go, oh, I couldn't do that without my agency. I couldn't do that without my team that I used to have because that person used to do that and that person used to do that. And I was just this small, insignificant little part of that. And, and then it's like, well, there's no one. You look around and you're like, well, it's you. So if not you, then who's going to do it? You're like, okay, it's going to be me. Okay, we're going to do it. And if it's not me, then I just pick up a phone. I know somebody else from the industry who can do it. And they're delighted to get some work. So if not now, when? And if not you, then who? But anything is possible. So just don't freeze. It allows me to break out of freeze and take action.
I love that. I'm a big believer in music. I'm a big fan of music. For me, music always changes my mood. We dance in my house every day. Big dancer. We have a playlist. We had a Christmas playlist. We have the whole lot. So favorite song or song of the moment that you're dancing to?
Well, in that vein, then it has to be ABBA. We have huge ABBA nights here. I did
not expect you to say that.
I know. My children, my girls are obsessed with ABBA and they love Mamma Mia, the movie. Thankfully, they don't understand the plot and the 3 dads and that whole thing, but they adore the movie and they will dance all night. So like almost one day a week, they will be putting ABBA on, putting Mamma Mia on. And I mean, but they sing to ABBA in the bath. They make me put on the soundtrack when they're in the bath. And instantly, no matter what kind of day you're having, the 4 of us are singing and dancing and having the time of our lives. And you do feel like, especially if you have a gin and tonic, you do feel like, oh God, it feels like we got out, It does something. I think you forget that actually your body does need to dance and to sing and to kind of, So sometimes it's just in our kitchen. We started it in lockdown. Every Saturday night we'd have a lockdown kitchen disco as everybody else did. And we kept it up. And ABBA is currently, Mamma Mia specifically, the soundtrack of Mamma Mia. Meryl Streep. Oh my God, what a woman.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, I think you've answered these last 2, but just to be very specific, your favourite self-care, I hate that word, but your favourite self-care method?
Yeah, getting out for a walk with the dog, specifically to the beach. I'm very fortunate. We live quite near Dollymount. So getting out onto the beach and watching him leg around the place and just being like, everything is fine. Everything is fine.
And then lastly, to the woman that is sitting with the crumbs and the snot,
Yeah.
watching the lady in the camel coat,
Yeah.
wondering what the hell happened to her life and if she will ever find herself again. And she adores her children, but didn't realize it would be this, and has just lost her pink, has just lost herself. What is the one very simple bit of advice you would give that woman listening, hopefully right now?
She has to get really quiet. She has to go and she has to take some space and get really quiet. And if she can have a pen and paper and to really ask herself, what does she need? And write it down. And you have to put it into the world that these are the things that I need. And maybe it's a case of just coming home and sliding that piece of paper across the table and being like, I need these things and I don't know how to make them happen. So you don't have to take it all on today. You don't have to switch on your pink today. You don't have to go neon today, but you do need to just try and take some space completely alone, get really quiet and tune into your own intuition. It knows what it's missing. It knows what it's depleted in, and ask yourself, what do you need? And then ask those that can help you to bring it into life to make that happen.
Sinead, you have been inspirational and funny, and Bluey will stay with me for the day.
Funny. I am more funny than people know. Sometimes the conversations are so serious, and so a lot of my content is kind of like angry at the world as well and the state of the situation. But I don't often, I am more funny than I think I share. So maybe I need to address that. I'm more lighthearted than I share.
I think you're very funny, and you're very inspirational, and you're very brave, and you're very honest, and you're very real, and you've been very honest and real today, and I've felt all the feels as we've spoken. I think I'm on the verge of tears, and I'm not sure why.
Because you've just recorded your very first episode.
I have.
I'm really proud of you.
Well, thank you, and I honestly I couldn't have picked a nicer person to start with. So it has been such a pleasure, and I'm going to do the outro as I'm here, and I'm going to say thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey and your insights with us. If you have enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with your friends. Thank you for tuning in to Finding Your Pink, and until next time.